Guys, I gotta be honest, when I first started playing poker, I struggled for a long time before I finally learned how to start winning consistently at this game, and it was really one simple adjustment that I made to my game that literally allowed me to solve the game of poker and go on to create some of the highest winnings of all time, especially in online poker games. And this simple poker strategy that I'm gonna teach you in today's video, literally anybody can start using this right away and winning for themselves. I'm going to walk you step by step through it today. So without any further ado, let's jump into it. All right, guys, so the key breakthrough that I made is learning how to make smart, calculated bluffs at the poker table. It was a simple insight that I learned from another fellow poker player who was crushing much higher stakes than me at the time. He simply said to me, Nathan, they can't always have it. Just keep betting, aka bluffing. And I'm going to walk you through a sophisticated, advanced bluff today, and I'm going to talk about exactly why this works specifically against this player type on this board texture in today's games. But guys, I really want to make that point clear. They can't have it all the time. Most of the time, nobody has anything in poker, and therefore when you learn a strong bluffing strategy like this, you're simply going to take all of those pots away that nobody really wants. And I want to be clear right off the start that bluffing really is my specialty, and this is the art of telling believable stories. Let's start telling a believable story right now. You've got Queen Jack offsuit, the Queen of Hearts, and Jack of Spades in middle position in a $1, $2 cash game. You raise it up to $6. Totally standard stuff here. I'm not going to break down all this in detail. I've made countless videos here on the channel talking about how you always want to raise first into the pot. Anyways, a nit calls you in the big blinds. Now let's talk about the nits, because as I always talk about in these videos, player type is absolutely crucial to every single hand of poker that you play. I have 5 major poker player types, and this is one of them. The nit is often also called a rock, and this is the tightest player at the table. This is one of the most common player types that you will encounter in today's games. These are essentially the people that are sitting around waiting for pocket aces, pocket kings. They're trying to hit a flush. They're trying to hit a straight. They are also called nut peddlers. Basically, they are super tight players who really haven't put all the pieces of the puzzle together yet and learned a strong aggressive game. However, they are often able to get break-even results or even small winnings in today's lower stakes games. Let's just call it a suboptimal strategy, but still a slightly winning strategy. So we know this player is going to be playing an incredibly tight range here. This player is going to have pocket pairs, strong Broadway hands like an ace king, king queen, king jack. They're going to have a couple suited connectors in their range, like a 9-10 of diamonds, for example. I also expect this player to have a couple suited aces, maybe a hand like an ace-5 of hearts, for example. I think you guys get the idea, a fairly tight range. So let's go see the flop now of the 9 of hearts, 7 of spades, and 5 of clubs. What should you do in this spot? Well, guys, this is all about continuing the aggression. When the nit checks to you on the 9 king 5 flop, a rainbow flop, meaning that there's 3 different suits. There's also no conceivable straight draw on this board. There's only some gut shot draws with a hand like a queen jack or a queen 10. This is a super harmless board, and you want to make your C bet here. C bet stands for continuation bet. Once again, we are continuing the aggression that we built before the flop. So guys, let me talk about this board just a little bit more. Number one, we do have a gut shot straight draw with our queen jack here. So we're not totally bluffing here. We do have 4 outs in our back pocket. Those are the 4 remaining 10s in the deck that if we catch one of those cards on the turn or river, we will have the nut straight. Guys, as I always point out, you never want to be bluffing with absolutely nothing. You always want to give yourself a chance to get lucky later on in the hand, and we have 4 clear outs to do that. Also, guys, crucially and much more important, this is a flop that squarely hits our range as the pre-flop raiser. I discussed this in extensive extensive detail in my first book, Crushing the Micro Stakes, that our perceived range when we raise before the flop is big cards like a king, an ace, a queen. So when the flop comes with one of those cards and two sort of other whatever, like a 9 and a 5, this is a very straightforward spot where you want to be continuing the aggression because this flop contains the exact cards that they're putting us on. However, this is not an interesting video if the nit just folds right now. So the nit calls and the turn comes down with the 6 of diamonds. What should you do? Well, guys, this is where my strategy starts to deviate a little bit from the norm, and this is all about making them a believer. So, guys, when the nit checks to you again on the 9 king 5 6 board, once again, this is a rainbow board. There is no possible flush draw, and there are very few conceivable straight draws on this board. You just want to keep your foot on the gas pedal. And now I need to always point out that poker is a game of frequencies. I talk about that in extensive detail in my second book, Modern Small Stakes, that I am never doing anything 100% of the time. In a situation like this, I am definitely going to be checking back for balance here some of the time, but a big portion of the time here, guys, I'm going to be double barreling. And what that means in poker is you raise before the flop, you bet the flop, and now you're going to bet the turn as well. This is an unbelievably strong play in No Limit Hold'em because you are essentially drawing a line in the sand and you're saying, look, I am super serious about this hand. This is going to start getting very expensive for you. Therefore, you need to fold your hand now. And luckily, most people will capitulate in today's games and throw their hand away here. But once again, it's not an interesting video if the nit does fold here. So let's assume the nit calls, river comes down with the ace of hearts. What should you do in this situation? All right, guys, well, this is where the real heart and soul of this bluffing strategy that I use comes into play. This is all about emptying the clip on the river of 9 king 5 6 ace. We have absolutely nothing at all with our queen jack. The old squadouche, we beat nothing. But that doesn't matter because it's all about what they can potentially have on this board, and let's talk about that right now. All right, guys, the reason you should be bluffing big here is because we know that there are almost 0 hands in this player's range that can conceivably make the call here. Guys, the key about poker is always taking it back to pre-flop and putting the pieces of the puzzle together depending on the sequence of actions in the hand. Remember, this player just called us pre-flop out of position, and so therefore the only thing you need to ask yourself is, would this player play a hand like ace king, ace queen, ace jack, and so on in this manner? I think you guys already know one of these super tight players like this, they're going to re-raise pre-flop with those hands the vast majority of the time, and therefore when we get a beautiful board run out like this with a king and an ace on the river, once again going back to what they put us on, this is a beautiful spot for us to fire the third shell here, put the ultimate pressure on this player to fold their hand now. Guys, bottom line, this is how you crush the weaker players in today's games. You have to remember that even if this player has a hand like ace 10 here, which is fairly inconceivable anyways, because why would they call us the whole way? But let's just assume they have ace 10 here and they are facing the triple barrel on the river. We are showing unbelievable strength, and a decent player like this who's trying to win, who's watching videos like this, will almost always talk themselves into a fold even in that situation. Now, I need to finish up the video by discussing one important thing. You need to have some thick skin. Guys, sometimes you are going to look like a complete idiot here. Sometimes they are going to actually call you with the ace 10 because they're just sick of you bluffing too much, and sometimes they are simply going to have the top of their range. They just just flat called you pre-flop with ace king. For some reason, they decided to play it differently this time, and they're of course going to snap call you on the river with their 2 pair here. But guys, the game of poker is all about percentages and ranges. It is not about individual hands. When you run big bluffs like this, sometimes you are going to have egg all over your face. They're going to be laughing at you at the poker table, but that is a result in just one situation. We need to always be thinking about poker in terms of when we play this same hand 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times or more, what is the likelihood that we are turning a profit? And in my experience as a longtime professional poker player, I have made weaker players like this fold again and again. And guys, in a nutshell, this is how you win at poker. We know that most of the time nobody has anything, and when you can take away big pots like this consistently, leaning on them with calculated smart aggression like this, you are simply going to separate yourself from everyone else in this game. Alright guys, like and subscribe if you found this one helpful. And by the way, if you want to know my entire strategy to beat today's poker games, I lay out my entire strategy in my 60-page free poker cheat sheet. That'll be the top link in the description below. It is totally free and you can read it in an afternoon. Alright guys, all the best at the poker tables unless you're on mine.